I'm super excited to have Maggie over today because I haven't really caught up with you in a while.
I know,
You have
it's
so
been a
much
minute.
going on
I know.
that I just kind of want to jump in because your energy is just
it.
flowing and you're
do
here. So,
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
oh my God, you look adorable.
Thank you.
That's a cool jacket.
Thanks.
What is that, velvet?
Yeah, you know, bringing it back.
What is that,
It's
velvet?
like, actually, I think it's corduroy. It's coming back.
It is corduroy. So it's raining in LA today.
It is. It's so weird. I kind of like it, though. It's a nice change.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, remind me how long you've been here because.
Oh, gosh. I've been here almost 6 years now.
Really?
Yeah, it flies by so fast. It feels like I just got here, but it also feels like LA is home, and I'm so familiar with it. So it's like a weird thought process.
That's a lot you just said, right?
It is.
You've been here 6 years.
Yeah.
For those that don't recognize Maggie, she's from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Maggie is a musical artist, and she's been here for 6 years,
Yeah.
budding her career.
Yeah.
This has been an amazing last couple of years just from the
Yeah.
outside looking in for you.
Thank you.
You've morphed into kind of you're still your artist, but I think you've kind of funneled into
Definitely.
what you're having fun with.
I do feel like I've really honed in and focused my energy on like finding who I am and the things I want to say and what I want to represent.
Yeah.
So the last year or two specifically have been really fun because I feel like it's so much easier when you have a focus, and I feel like I found that.
Well, you, as a musician, you sort of get guided by, you don't get to choose that kind of.
Yeah.
But whenever you can refine it and find your focus, like you said,
Yeah.
you start. I guess you're on your happy path. Or
Totally.
something.
And I feel like that's the hardest part because
Yeah.
with everyone, like no matter what you do, like you are who you are because you're influenced by so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard thing about when you have to pick a path is like, okay, which one of those influences do I run with? Because I feel like in entertainment, especially if you're too many different things, people get confused and they want to put you in a box and they want to be able to label you and identify you as one thing. And that's hard because what do you want to be? There's so many different things that you love. So I do feel like I have really honed myself into a specific path, and that makes me feel really good, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and it seems like it's been like within a compressed time frame.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna
Yeah.
digress for a minute because I think we may have met online even prior to being introduced.
Oh,
by-
yeah, we did.
I think it was like MySpace or Twitter or SoundCloud or something.
Yeah.
And All About Maggie
What was
and the
it?
thousands had connected somehow. I want to say this is like almost 8 or 9. It was before I had met you. Because I remember when I met you, I was like, All About Maggie.
Who is
I'm
this?
like, I remember having an online friend in my musical thing. And so
so
it must have been
crazy.
like MySpace because it was so far long ago. It was like
Maybe
8 years ago.
I'm trying to think though because I don't even. I feel like it might have been YouTube.
Was it YouTube?
I don't know.
Maybe
YouTube,
it was.
Facebook, whatever. One of them.
So I think when I think about kind of the progression and I think of my timeline,
Yeah.
that's where I start. My starting point is like I met this artist online and what you were putting out YouTube videos. I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
It was YouTube video.
because that's what I started. I was living in Canada in
Yeah.
a small town, and I got signed to a record label close to Toronto. And so when I got signed to the label, we started releasing videos on YouTube, and that's kind of how I started releasing music online.
Those are still up. Those are some of your first ones, I think.
Yeah,
still.
some of them are not all of them are up, but some of them are still up. Yeah.
Writing sessions and
Yeah, a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
yeah, BTS stuff. I'm remembering now. It's fun kind of reliving that. And again, that's why I was super excited to come in because I was trying to think about, I want to prepare like stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just excited to catch up with
I
Maggie
know.
because we had caught up a lot at our gym.
Yeah.
I'll say it, Brick CrossFit.
Yeah.
Go Brick. For the last as many years as we've known each other. And
Yeah.
during that time, you have little short bursts of conversations. You catch up, ebbs and flows. But rarely do we one-on-one.
One-on-one get to sit down for like an extended period of time.
Yeah.
I know.
And we have done it before. It's not like we haven't worked on music before.
No,
and
but it's
recorded
like
songs
you're
and-
also usually in social settings
Yeah.
and like a lot of stuff is going on. So this is kind of like a nice way to focus.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so I again, starting point, a lot of times I'll try to prepare for people or prepare to talk about something, and I'm like, this is going to be super easy. So that's why I'm glad we're just kind of jumping in. I wanted to also circle back, though, when you were talking about LA being home now and you moved from Canada. Like, what was there a decision point or a tipping point, per se, that made you decide to make the move away from your family?
Well, I always have done music, and I grew up in a town called Dundas in Ontario. It's like an hour and a bit from Toronto. And so I always sang and I wrote songs, and I love Canada and I love where I'm from, but I always, ever since I was a kid, I had this dream of moving to California. I don't know what it was because I'd never been there. I think I was attracted to the entertainment industry and the fact that there were so many people doing music and it was sunny and bright, and I never really loved winter anyways. So, so I got signed to a record label, and I was with them for a couple years. I released an album and we did that whole thing, and I wrote all the material, and I felt like I needed a change and I needed to make a jump, and I didn't know exactly what that was yet. Yeah. So I decided I was going to come to LA for 2 weeks for a songwriting trip, and I was just going to connect with new producers and new songwriters. So I planned this trip, and I came out here, and within like the first week, I called my parents. I was like, you guys, I need to move here. I'm sorry. But the thing was, because I'm Canadian, I didn't have a visa. So I had to go back, but I gave myself a deadline, and the deadline was April 15th. And I think that was about a month.
Tax season or something.
Like, it was like, I was like, I'm going to give myself 30 days. I don't care how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to give myself 30 days to figure out my visa situation and to pack up all my stuff and like change my life. So I went home, and literally I got like the paperwork in like 2 days before the 15th, and I had already booked my flight for the 15th. And I had shipped my car out here. So I just was dead set on making it happen. And I remember my dad saying to me, like, why are you so stressed about it? Has to be April 15th. Like, just relax. Like, we can figure it out. And I'm like, no, like, it has to be this way, because I feel like if I don't meet that goal and if I don't come out here in that time, I just felt like I was going to get too relaxed about it, and I had to make it happen. And I also didn't want to second guess, like, is this the right move? Choice. I just wanted to do it. So I came out here. I didn't really know anyone. I didn't have a plan. And I stayed. But I figured it out. The first year was like a hot mess, just because I started on a very like beginner level visa, so I was super limited as far as the amount of time I could be here and the kinds of opportunities with music and with entertainment that I could do. And it was just like starting from scratch. Like, I didn't have a social number, so I had to get that. And like, even getting a cell phone I had to do the pay as you go for like the first 6 months, because all of these things that you don't think about. But so I feel like the first year I was here was just me like figuring out like how to just live here. And
this is not an easy city to figure that out. No matter how, if it's day 1 or day 100.
Totally. I still am figuring it out.
Yeah, but day 4,000.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's even cutting it short.
But you know, I don't regret it. And I go home a lot and see my family, and that part is great.
Well, that's one of the things I do admire about you. And I've never met your family, but you're very open with your social media, and your father and your mother. You can tell that you all have a very special bond. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't remember if you have siblings or you know.
I have 2 sisters.
You have 2 sisters.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So, yeah, they both are back home. They live close to my parents. I'm the middle child.
You're the middle child. Okay. Yeah. But what do your sisters do?
My younger sister, her and I are super close. We were literally just on the phone. She's a science girl. And she's in school. She's going to U of T. She's getting her master's. Okay. And my older sister also, she does like some acting and some writing and some cosmetology stuff as well. Yeah.
So she's in Canada.
Yeah, they both are.
So what did they think about you making the move?
Well, my younger
sister... Are they like, oh, that's just Maggie. That's who she is.
I think that, I was always kind of leaving.
Families like that. Like, okay, well, that's what they do.
It's her. And I was always leaving, like, traveling like different places, and I had spent some time in Nashville when I was a teenager right after high school. I went up there for a year and just to write songs. So I drove out there when I was 18. I had like a little Saturn, and I just like, yeah. So they kind of knew, and that's kind of normal. Yeah.
One thing I notice about you, even in the way you tell your stories and the choices you were making when you move, is you're very headstrong.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever told you?
Sometimes people call
they
it
use
being
other
stubborn.
words. I didn't want to say it. I was like, anybody ever called you?
I take it as a compliment.
It is, because you're like your boss lady. For those that also don't know, the other side of your life is you kind of manage and run your own business, and we'll leave it at that. And so you take care of yourself as an entrepreneur, I'd say, on the side, but you also focus most of your energy on your art. And I think that is something very admirable to anybody that's trying to figure out a good life balance.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And when you make big choices and go to big cities, sometimes you sacrifice certain things to get a side hustle. The side hustle turns into something bigger. And then you're like, okay, that's my little, I got to manage that because that provides this. And I recognize that in you. And we even started some of our dialogue today when you came in about some of the business stuff. So I do admire that in you. And that takes a lot of, I guess, skills. I don't know. Well, I guess just how do you go about trying to manage all the things that you do? Because you're multitasking.
Yeah. And I feel like I've always loved businesses, and I like the side of me that feels like I want to do this and chase this, and I love being an entrepreneur. And I think since my dad was born in Yugoslavia and he immigrated to Canada as a teenager, and he's an entrepreneur, and that's how he made his way, and he owns a collision center, and he's always been working super hard and growing his business. And so I think that's kind of instilled a lot in me and what I do. And obviously music and songwriting is a business, and I have to run it like a business. And I've always just loved different creative outlets. So I did start a t-shirt company called Threadthelove.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's been like about
Give a little plug.
4 months
Say it
in the
again.
making. Threadthelove.
Threadthelove.
Yeah. So that's my latest little baby, and that's been like 4 or 5 months in the making. So it started out with like the idea, and the concept is I've really been a lot about in the last couple of years positive self-affirmation and self-love. And so the idea for the t-shirts is there's quotes in the t-shirts, but they're backwards so that when you look in the mirror, you can read them. Oh. So there are daily reminders about self-love and positivity and encouragement and strength. So
we like that. We like that stuff.
So I came up with that idea.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's
awesome.
Awesome.
In the summer.
Be a light angel or a light warrior or yes.
So, and I just think, especially in LA, it's so easy you're always comparing yourself, and I'm guilty of that. And even just starting with myself, I wanted to figure out a way to easily remind myself, like, yeah, I am a badass and I can do all these different things.
Yeah, you are.
So, thanks. So that's where the idea for the shirt line came in, and we built a website, and I made designs, and now we have an online store, and we're launching on Amazon, and so yeah, that's
I love
fun.
the e-commerce thing. I've recently, in my little break and journey, have been uncovering some things that I want to dip my hands into. But
I mean, it's nice because it gives you freedom. Like, you can do anything you want, and you have a seed of an idea. It wasn't like 20 years ago where like, okay, I want to start something, and you have to get brick and mortar, and you have to do all these crazy things. Like, you can just launch it from your own home, which is nice.
And I will double down on what you just said, because you're one of the first people, and we even talked about how we met online first. You're really good at now your engagement on your social media platforms. Yeah. You're really good at using it. And God, we could jump right into even what's going on now, because you've transferred some of those skills online in regards to engagement and building your fan base into Spotify now. Yeah. And geez, that's a whole new platform that people are just getting used to. I've been at Spotify. I love Spotify. Yeah. So plug Spotify. Yeah. Guys. Hi. We like y'all. But describe kind of some of the stuff you're doing to get your music on there now. I don't even know where to start.
Well, the thing now is that there's so many different music platforms. There's Apple Music, there's Tidal, there's Spotify, there's YouTube, there's SoundCloud. And when people go to look for an artist, I feel like the first thing they look at is their numbers. And that's how they validate you as far as how good your music is. True. And how successful you are, and if your music is worth them listening to. So I found it was really difficult because there are so many different streaming platforms that it was getting really spread out, and I wanted to really concentrate, especially on something like Spotify, which is used everywhere and everyone's using it. So about a year ago, I made the decision I really want to focus getting people to my Spotify and building those numbers. So my strategy was to start collaborating with DJs in the EDM world, which I've always done. I've always done pop and songwriting, so it was kind of an easy thing for me. And my goal was to find different DJs that needed what I had to offer, which was writing and vocals, because a lot of them are just producers and they make beats and tracks. So they need writers and singers. So I was going to provide my service to them, and in return, they were going to basically share their fans with me. So I started writing songs at home and recording them and sending these top lines, as we call them, out to different DJs. And that's how it kind of started. So then how it would work is they would release the song, but I would be the it wasn't just a featured artist, it was a co-artist. Yeah. So it would pop up on my Spotify main as well. Page. And those numbers would also pop up on my Spotify page. So my monthly listeners would have everything to do with that song that we did a collaboration with. Yeah. And that's how it kind of started, which gives me access to, okay, when I release a song just solo, I have those numbers that are now going to go listen to just my song. Yeah.
And you started really making specific trips over to...
Yeah, so I go to Amsterdam a lot. Yeah. That's kind of like the capital of the EDM scene. Oh. I'm not exactly sure why. But it's beautiful, so I don't mind going. I've gone there so many different times. Yeah. And... that's just where a lot of the labels and the publishing companies are, and the DJs go there a lot to work. And so I make an effort, of course, to go there at least a couple times a year if I can.
Was that something you mentioned you were doing at home? It's easy. I mean, here we are in my studio. You are self-recording. Were you just coming up with melodies and vocal arrangements and just sending just that off? Or do you have a little piano underneath?
Like at home here? Yeah. Yeah. So, what I'll do is I'll either write to piano, and they're stripped down top lines, meaning just either an acoustic guitar or piano.
2 instrument.
Yeah. And it would just be vocals, and that's it. And you don't want to produce it any more than that, because what that does is if it's too produced, the DJ has a hard time hearing what he's going to do. And he or she has a hard time really visualizing what their sound is going to be.
Yeah, you made some connections that way, and then you started to work and find people that you wanted to go spend time with. Yeah. And then you started making the trips out there and spend time with them. And now that whole kind of process is built over the last, year and a half.
Yeah. And even then, a lot of the collaborations I do, I never meet them. But I'll go over there, even meeting with publishing companies or different writers that write a lot in that world who have connections to the DJs, because a lot of the times they're on tour, or sometimes they don't even live in Amsterdam. Yeah. But at least just being there, you're introduced to so many different people and creatives.
It's such an important thing to talk about. It's wild. I can't believe we just spent the last 5 minutes talking about e-commerce and online as an artist, because, it's just the state of where we are. Like you said, 20 years ago, this didn't happen. I remember not having I'm of the generation that I didn't get a cell phone until I was in college. I didn't have a computer until I was in college. A phone, now it's crazy. Everything. Yeah. And to be able to think, we didn't think in terms of that when we were growing our mind through when I say our teens and 20s, because the earning years are 30, 40, 50. But to hear you speak about it, and the fact that it's just part of the realm of how you grow your art and spread it today for anybody that's got a hope and a dream, whether it's to take your family to Disneyland or something. There's a whole world out there, and we carry this dang phone around with us all day, and you can go get almost whatever you want.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I also feel like there's just no excuses. You don't have any excuse to not be doing what you want to do. Yeah. Because it's all at your fingertips. You have access to everything.
Man, that's a really good point. I think it's probably a good time to take a little quick break, because I want to get off of the e-commerce conversation and go back to kind of where we started and recircle back about your choice to come and your music and sort of the arc that you're on now, because your music has changed a lot too. And so I'll ask anybody that's listening to whylab right now to stick around with Maggie Szabo, but coming back in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. Michael Flowers here with my friend Maggie.
Hi.
In the whylab today. And we were just talking about all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. Thanks for coming back to the second half. And I wanted to start off the second half and bring it kind of back to where we started, which was we were talking about making the move to LA. And that had made a comment about how headstrong you were, and you were talking about, like, I'm just going for it. I'm going for it. Is there something that, like, when you grew up, is one of your parents like that? Do you relate to somebody in your, like, an uncle or an aunt where you're like, I see how headstrong and confident they are. I'm going to make choices and stick with it. Or can you pinpoint something?
Well, I look back a lot to my dad and my grandmother. My grandmother lived with us, and she raised me also, and I was super close with her. And I always try and remind myself every day, like, what I'm thankful for. And the fact that we all live in a country like this, and I grew up in Canada, and I was so fortunate in so many different ways. My grandmother, they were born in Yugoslavia. It was not a great time to be there. And she had to pick up, she didn't speak a word of English. She picked up and took her 3 boys and her husband over to Canada. They jumped on a boat. It was either Australia or Canada.
Wow.
So they got on the Canada boat, and I have a picture of them on the boat in my kitchen. And she didn't speak a word of English, and she got there, and she started working nights as a janitor at the school. And her husband, my grandfather, wasn't able to work, so she was supporting the family. She would work all night, cook during the day for the kids, and that's how she lived her life. And she was just super strong, and I remember she used to tell me, even when she got to Canada at first, she refused to hang out with the ladies that spoke her language because she wanted to learn a new language. She wanted to learn how to speak English so she could really grow herself as a person in this new country. So she would only hang out with the English speakers, even though she didn't understand what they were saying at first. But eventually she learned how to speak English. And I always just think about that and think about, like, wow, like, how blessed are we that we grew up in a place like this and we didn't have to face those kind of things. Like, could you imagine having your family and having to jump on a boat, and I'm sure they weren't great boats, and, like, spend 2 weeks traveling, just getting to a place where you've never been before. So I think about that, and I try and compare myself, like, wow, I was already blessed with being one step ahead of where they were, and I just want to take advantage of that opportunity. And really, we have no excuse to not work our ass off, and we have these goals, and I just think that's what life is for, is to try and chase them and be where you want to be and make your family proud and have fun doing it also.
You think your April 15th was sort of an homage to your grandmother?
Maybe. I don't know. I would like to think so. I'm going to show
you that I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for showing me the strength.
Yeah. Because also, you don't, it's a day, and I'm sure they didn't have a choice to be like, I think we'll just go whenever we feel like, no, you don't have that choice. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I think like growing up with a strong role model that you witness action and then you get sage advice from as well. If it's really good and it hits home at some point, it just kind of lives with you forever. Yeah. I have a special place for my Uncle Joe.
Okay.
He's out on Flowers Dairy, Meeker, Oklahoma. I'll give a shout out to Meeker, Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
My Uncle Joe is he's somebody that he's always lived like this solidarity kind of life, and is always lived by what he thought was the right way, whether it was right or wrong. And I found that just a really admirable trait. Yeah. And even though I didn't super align with it, I just always like, man, that guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was my dad's best friend growing up. That's so awesome. I always knew that there was some reason my dad was best friends with him. And I always kind of felt like I had a little connection with him that way. So it's cool to hear talking reverence about your grandmother.
Yeah. And even what you just said, you said sometimes what you thought and what he thought didn't always align.
No.
But I think it's amazing that you can still accept someone for who they are and love them and appreciate them and admire them, even though you don't always agree with them. And I think that's so important. And I feel like sometimes we forget that, and then we'll, turn away from people, but there's so many lessons that we can learn from everyone. Yeah. So I think that's cool.
Well, that's sort of why I'll give whylab a little plug here, is my personal journey this year is I seem to be having problems making what I think is a big decision, and I'm not sure really what it is. There's this real ambiguous kind of nebulous.
Like what decision?
I've been in LA for 20 years, and sometimes self-reflection and trying to become the silent observer of my life here, I'm questioning what is happening now versus what's happening next. And I think in location, I think in people and environment, and I've started to really question whether or not I need or want to be here. Yeah. And I have not really gone full depth of trying to make a decision. And so that's one of the bigger decisions. So I say there's some other ones, but that's the one I've been battling with the most. Yeah. So I say that during this process of taking a year off and trying to do whylab was trying to live more with the question rather than looking for the answers, and spend time with others listening to their answers. Yeah. And maybe I would resonate with. And so I've been plugging about your move and your headstrong and making those decisions. I may even circle back to say, do you do practicing your self-love? Is there some form of meditation, or how do you connect the self-love and making strong choices and being that person that you are? Yeah. Do you have a practice?
Every day I try and go to the gym. Well, I do go to the gym. Yeah. Or if I can't go to the gym, I run. I think it's my time for me to just like take care of my body physically and mentally. And I also think the act of serving yourself and treating yourself just reflects on loving yourself, and I think that bleeds into everything, to work, to relationships. So I try and do that every day. And every night I look in the mirror and I tell myself all the things that I want to be and where I want to go. And even as simple as like, you're beautiful and you're strong. And I do this every single night. And I have a vision board, and I update that and I work on that whenever I need to. So there's those three things that I do consistently every day.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
And the fact that the word you use is consistency every day. I mean, I think that's probably the hardest part about, and I'll put myself in this bucket, is becoming a little bit lazy. What's the word? Procrastination. And even with self-goals, even when it's something major that might need to be decided on or make a big choice, procrastinating that is not healthy.
No, but it's so easy to do.
It's so easy.
No, it's like I do it all the time. That's why I have to fight to push myself. But yeah, that's normal.
Do you have art, like music goals? Like what I'm hearing is a lot of self affirmation, a lot of self-love, a lot of self-goals. That takes you anywhere you want to go. Do you funnel some of that specifically into music and art?
Yeah, so on my vision board, I have specifically the steps and the goals that I want. I want a record deal. I want a publishing deal. I want a #1. I would love a Grammy. I want a tour in the next year. So all those things, those are like the actual like goals I've set out.
Awesome. Yeah. Was that something that again, mom, dad, sisters?
No, that is just like that? Spiritual, like LA shit right there. That's LA.
That was after yoga class. I was having a kale smoothie, and we were talking about our vision boards.
I feel like if I was living in Canada, I would have never done that. But like, I don't know, sometimes like LA, I was reading a lot about them in different podcasts that I would listen to. And even the fact what you were saying before, taking this year off for yourself to like figure out what the next step is. Yeah. I think exactly doing this, because I've been listening to the podcast and you're interviewing so many amazing people and getting different energies and inspiration. And I think not focusing on like what's going to happen next, just figuring out you being here now. I think like this is exactly what you should be doing.
Thanks. Even just the halftime, like the little workflow and I'm learning so much about having to produce this. Yeah. Just some software interfaces and technology.
There's a lot.
It's a lot going on. So that's been fun for my brain. It's like I'm learning a lot of new things in a creative field that I wanted to do. I made a commitment that during this time I would spend most of it, if not all of it, being creative, because I missed that the most. And also focused on doing things with others rather than just by myself, because I didn't miss that the most. And I'd been in a career and a job that focused on a territory and a target and a goal and a self, I mean, a sales rep. There's no, so you're not a sales reps. I'm not a team.
It's just totally independent.
Yeah. And so as much as I could look around and measure what was good or bad or successful, it just wasn't right. And so the focus again was others and being creative. And it's been fun learning.
I've always known you as a creative person. So it's just great to see that that's now your main focus. And also being creative lends itself to always working with other people. Like anything you do, you can't just be creative and be on your own. You have to work with different people and collaborate. So it's exciting.
Yeah. It's really weird because I sometimes look at like the music side, like the musician or like the writer, because I grew up journaling and writing, and that's what got me into being a lyricist or poet or MC or whatever you want. The hip hop world I was in. I still play guitar and I write, but I don't sit around and write a new song a week or something like that. Maybe one or two a year. And sometimes I'll look back and I'm like, well, you're not producing music anymore. I'm like, no, this is sort of the new, it's the replacement.
Yeah.
So that's been great. It's filled up the days.
And it's also nice, I feel like, when you have a goal of like, okay, I'm going to do X amount of episodes and I'm going to release them online, and at least you have a place where you can share what you've been working on. Because sometimes it's tough, like if you were saying you weren't writing a song every week, but that's also a difficult thing, because if you don't know what you want to do with it or where you want to put it, it can be kind of daunting too, because you're like, okay, like I'm going to write this beautiful song and then who's going to hear it? Something like this is like you have a plan, like you're doing this and you have the workflow and you know you can share it and people can listen and they can benefit from the work you've been doing.
Wow. That really hit home, because any producer or artist, musician has a folder of unfinished tracks and songs and everything. And I made a commitment to do a weekly podcast with somebody else. I'm held accountable to do that. Yeah. And
I think it makes it a lot easier knowing that the world is going to be able to hear it, because you're serving your listeners. Wow. It's true though.
Well, you're right. I mean, you hear people say, I'd rather be of service, and giving is better than receiving. And a lot of it is, unless you put it to practice and take action on it and really try to surrender to it.
Yeah.
The thing that I've been trying to do mostly is, I hit a point this summer where things just started to slow down, because my world wasn't so rapidly coming at me, and I didn't have to go aggressively out and put so many irons in the fire, that the observer of my life became more prevalent. Yeah. And that's what's been really helping me get through, because I'll tell you, there's some tough emotional times, financial worries, what's next, that observer comes in and is like, hey, this is your choice. Yeah. Don't worry about the emotional ebbs and flows. Yeah. Do the work. Enjoy the process. Yeah. Life is short.
And that's the benefit of having room to breathe, is you can do that. But then also you have more room to like really psychoanalyze yourself and like, what's going on? Yeah. But as long as you're doing what you're doing, which is being creative, and you're actively working towards your goal and keeping yourself busy.
I really appreciate you saying that, because that means that you've been paying attention, and you've put thought into it, and you know me. So I really appreciate you making that comment.
Of course. And I always think about like people who have a job like that with numbers and they just don't love it, but they don't have any other outlet to share themselves. And I think like that must be so tough. Like at least you have something that you love and that you're working towards and that makes you happy. But a lot of people don't even have that.
That's a good, not total segue, but I'll digress a little bit, because I am of a certain type that I've always been a real left brain, right brain kind of guy. I really like the balance, even in high school and college or whatever, playing athletics. I always was the artist, or it was always, even in work environment, everybody was always like, yeah, that's flowers, you know.
Yeah.
But I've always took pride in developing both sides of that side of myself. And because you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And so I think when you made the comment just now about at least you had something else, I fed both sides. Like for many decades, I sacrificed. Like I'm not not my 30s anymore. So you sacrifice some things too to explore yourself and dig into what a no regret situation would be later on. And so it's tough. I mean, it's tough. I don't know if everyone, because we're all different. We all got different fingerprints. Totally. Not everybody needs an outlet. Outlets. Some people are super hyper focused. They're neurosurgeons.
Yeah,
that's what
all
they do.
They love to do. Yeah.
So it's really like for those people that struggle with who am I and what am I doing, or like thoughts of anxiety, or if I'm doing well, like sometimes it might just be in taking up a hobby and focusing more time on it and
doing something you love. If it's once a week. If it's going to the gym or drawing or painting. Yeah.
And committing to it, like even you said earlier, consistency every day.
Yeah.
Vision board.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's cool though.
Yeah.
We all have our goals and our wishes and different ways of getting there.
I set some time constraints. You know, I don't have an April 15th, but I have a February 15th.
What's February 15th?
That's my 1 year mark.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so February 15th is coming. And so we're only 3 months. So
damn,
my last quarter.
That's awesome. Well, 3 months, that's good.
Yeah, 3 months. I have no complaints.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're a different person now than you were right before this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mentally, spiritually.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, when you're not happy, you're projecting a lot of that outwardly. And I wasn't making the time to love myself and take care of myself. And so I've been practicing. Yeah. Which is more meditation, getting back into yoga, changing my physical, which is our environment that we used to spend more time in, and really making sure that the environments that I put myself in are beneficial on that path, and trying not to have too much of the highs and lows.
Yeah. So you've been meditating every day?
I have a 3 o'clock alarm on my phone.
That's awesome.
Usually 3 o'clock's a time where, like, physically I start to get a little bit. I'm a morning person, so I'll get up at 5 or 6 sometimes, and so I use it as a 20-minute rejuvenation. And if I do get a little tired, I'll take a little nap. But so that's 3 o'clock every day.
That's awesome.
I try to go out and do my breathing techniques and get into a little bit. I'm not a big mantra guy, but I vision and get lost and that's how I clear my conscious thoughts.
It's interesting too, because I feel like even just like taking care of yourself, like mentally and physically, it's a job. Like it's a responsibility.
Practice every day.
Practice.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when I started doing that, I'm like, wow, like this is actually like just another thing on my to-do list that I have to do. And it's like, it feels like a responsibility. And obviously as you do it more, then you start to rely on it and it becomes second nature.
Could you pinpoint the time that you started doing that more, or it became more important in your life?
Yeah. So I started doing it more. So I'm in a relationship with a guy named Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Hey. Dr. Rowe. Oh, Dr. Rowe.
And so we've been living together for a couple years.
Yeah.
And for work, he had to get placed somewhere else. So he's in Chicago. And so it was a big adjustment for me living with somebody for that long, and then still being in a relationship with them and moving out. And then also having to adjust my life, like going to a new place and basically it's a second home now because I'm there every month and it's a space where I go to work and live in. So that was a big adjustment for me, and I wanted to use that as an opportunity to better myself and really focus on myself, especially if I was going to be basically living on my own again for like 5 years.
A lot of people would take that as a traumatic mental event and turn it into a woe is me. Yeah. You know, oh my God, this is happening. The world is against me.
Yeah.
And I love that you just try to look at your life and say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to.
But even in the beginning,
it's forced on me.
It's forced. But in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like, what are we going to do? And like, oh my gosh. And totally in the beginning, I was like, why is the world like doing this? But now I look back and I'm like, wow, this was actually, I don't like that he's away, but I think it was a blessing in the sense because it tests you and it pushes you into different directions. So I kind of took that and I ran with that.
And that's been a couple years.
Yeah, it's been a year and a half.
That's cool that you can pinpoint it. I don't know that a lot of people can.
Well, especially, so he's in residency, and so there's a match day every year. It's the match day that all med school students go through every single year. So it was, in June he had to leave because match day, I think, was in March or February. So it's a very specific timeline. So it's easy to pinpoint.
Are you a reader? Are you books or Audible or podcast?
I'm Audible. I wish I was a reader. Yeah. I try. I buy all these books and I never read them. So I audiobook and I podcast.
Yeah. Well, audio has changed a lot now. It's again trying to put out good content, but I think it's also the relativity of audio in regards to our daily life. You just think about it. You get, hey Siri, hey Alexa, hey, oh my God.
In your car.
She's literally, hey.
She's like,
comparing apples and apples.
That's like comparing apples and not apples.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Creepy.
That is creepy.
Oh my God. I go, hey Siri and Alexa. She goes, that's like comparing.
They're always listening, dude.
Oh my God. But audio is such a part of our life.
Yeah.
When you walk into your house now, you can literally be like, hey, order me some milk, or I'm out of socks. Yeah. And the next thing you know, you've got an ad from socks and milk, and they can make your grocery list and have it delivered to you. And so I've really latched onto the podcast world. I'm a big believer in writing in the written word and reading it and absorbing it and taking the time. And I believe it helps build like the whole neural process. Yeah. But I think in today's age, it's much easier to get more content when you can multitask your life. And you can put earbuds in and do a podcast. Every day I listen to it.
Driving, especially in LA, like traffic everywhere.
That's what I say every time I start the podcast. Like, thank you for making the choice. Where you're driving or doing laundry or walking the dog
doing your makeup. I always listen when I'm doing my makeup.
It's the best. Like when you can I spend an hour every morning with my dog. I get up, I focus on energy with her and going at the park, and I listen to a podcast, and I try to let audio come in before the phone interface. And if when I do, I'm actually outside in the trees dealing with my dog, so I don't get totally locked into it. And that's how I try to start my mornings. Yeah. With audio.
Which is, I think that's great because you're also like absorbing something that you're learning and positivity and all these different things first thing, how to start your day. Like,
it's motivated me too to get in and do this and share the content and have really interesting and amazing conversations with awesome people. Yeah. I think we're almost at the final four.
The time when the camera stops.
We got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So this is what I like to do at the end. It's called the final four. You can answer with a sentence or a word. Okay. All right, question number 1. What is the most least expensive thing that you could not do without?
The most least expensive thing, running.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
If you had a movie coming out this weekend, what's the title and who's the lead actress or actor?
Oh, if I had a movie coming out, well, let's just say, damn, dude.
What?
All right, let's think Canadian. Is Rachel McAdams Canadian? No, Ryan. The guy that in the Ryan Reynolds is Canadian.
Oh, is he Canadian?
Ryan Reynolds is, so he would be in
whatever he's
Canadian. Be some spiritual journey movie.
What's the title? What's the name of it?
It would be called I'm on My Way.
I'm on My Way with Ryan Reynolds coming out this weekend. A story about Maggie's the original story with Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. All right, question number 3. What's something you would like for people to know about you that we don't get to see through your social media or?
I guess I don't always. I'm close with my family, which I don't share. I share on social media, but not a lot. But they're a huge part of my life. I'm on the phone with them like too many times a day, so I would say that family.
I think then that makes the final question. When and if you have your first child, of your mother, your father, and your 2 sisters, who would get to name your first child?
I would say my younger sister.
Your younger sister?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I feel like she's more like hip with like the cool names.
She's the cool one.
Yeah. She would like, my parents might pick like a super traditional name, and my little sister would be cooler.
That's awesome. I loved having you here today. I think we haven't giggled together in a while like this, so I'm just stoked that I got to catch up on your life.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
I'm very grateful for the time, and you made the choice to come over in the rain in Los Angeles in the middle of the day. And for everybody that's still with us in video world and audio world, thank you for sticking around. Wait, plug your
okay, so
Instagram, everything like that.
My name, Maggie Szabo. You can find me online at allaboutmaggie, MAGGIE, on everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And you can check out my t-shirt line, Thread the Love Co. on Instagram, website, threadthelove.com.
Thread the Love, all about Maggie.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming by.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure. Bye, everybody.